Hi, I'm gonna have a quick update today in English. In recent days, when I push my thread to the expatriates groups, I got some positive comments as well as some negative comments. The reason of that was because many of the expats do not speak Chinese and they are even not willing to understand Chinese. Even they're living in China, they prefer everybody speak with their home languages, majorly in English or other languages. I appreciate all these expats who had supported us to fight with the viruses those days. But on the other hand, most of the people, it's not just recently, but throughout their lifetime in China, they enjoy the conveniences in China. They enjoy the opportunity that Chinese people granted to them to make a living up here. But on the other hand, unfortunately, they would not willing to learn our language or trying to understand us in some ways. We're not talking about political issues, but just culture-wise. Most of the times when people don't understand my language or they see words written in Chinese, push a thread into their groups. Some of them popped up something like, please, this is an English group. I mean, excuse me, as a person who had somewhat international experiences throughout 3 continents, when the time I was abroad, almost 20 years ago, I have nowhere, absolutely no solution to speak my language in a foreign country. I have to use the language which the country are using in common. Most of my time, I was speaking in English. And that gives me an opportunity to improve my language and understand their culture better. It's not just a matter of you write some simple sentence saying 谢谢,你好, or whatever. I cannot just say, hey, grazie mille, or I just say, merci beaucoup, or I just say, thanks, sure, or thank you well. I cannot just say that and living in that country without speaking their languages. Somewhat, I have to use the language they are using in common. Even most of the time, after my experiences in the States, I prefer to just speak English as a common language. But somewhat, I have to speak some French. When I was in France, the reason I don't want to improve my French was because most of the time I experience the arrogance of French people when they cannot understand the correct pronunciation. So I did prefer not to speak the language. That's my problem. But on the other hand, whenever I go to a place, if those French people do not speak English, what can I do? I live in Paris. I have to speak their language, right? So I have to force myself to do so. Even in Italy, it was the same. Even those two languages has been faded out from my memory. Whenever I recall it, I'm trying to use it. Whenever I go back to Europe, I also have to use the languages to people who cannot speak English or the other languages. Even when I go to Europe, many of the Europeans, because of consumerism, they'd rather volunteer themselves to speak with me as 谢谢,你好,你好吗? So that's supposed to be the true globalization and internationalism to unite people together. When you living in my country, why do we have to volunteer ourselves to speak in your language and so-called being respect? I don't even understand this. I have nothing whatsoever disrespect anybody. Because even today, I leave a comment in one of the foreign groups because somebody comment to us saying, hey, please don't spam in the group. Excuse me, I push my article into these groups was because it's relevant. If this is not a subject relevant, I would absolutely not push them into this particular group, right? But if you don't understand my language, if you have put any efforts to just translate it via WeChat, via Google, you can understand what I'm talking about. Not just the push a thread saying, hey, please don't spam if you don't understand the language. In digital era, everything could be possibly translated into another language. If, just for instance, I don't understand Russian, some people push a thread into the groups. And I could simply just copy and paste those things to Google Translator or just simply use a WeChat translator to translate it. I think that's supposed to be a mutual respect to each of the group members. And then even the group administrators should not protect those people who just as an expats. A while ago, somebody told me for a 快递 matter, and this person told me, oh, excuse me, she's an expat. What do you expect she does? Well, unfortunately, this person bears a Chinese name, and 90% she speaks Chinese. At least she somewhat understands how to write Chinese. And the reason that she doesn't want to put efforts to receive the package, volunteer herself, was because she gets so used to the conveniences of everything. And she filed a complaint behind me to the administration of the group without even speak with me privately in advance. What I want to say is, if I go to a foreign country, I have to respect the culture. I have to force myself to speak a language which they are using in that country in common. I believe all the expats who living in my country should have to put a little bit efforts to improve the basics of Chinese. If you really have a difficulty to understand the language, you can use a simply instant translator from Google. To any expats who live in China, regardless if it's Beijing or Shanghai, they should put more efforts to understand our languages here. We had a great gesture to all the expats here and trying to help them to understand better in respect of their culture and trying to deal with them in English in general. But this is not something obliged. If they have to living in a foreign country, if they really respect us, that's simply just an easy thing to do. It's nothing difficult and complicated. If you want to live in China and make a living here, you do not just simply expect that you're making a living in the expat group society. You would also want to contribute to this country and people here. Without understanding the language, how do you be able to melt in this country and melt in this culture and deal with people whoever you have to deal with, especially for manufacturing and fashion sectors, or you're doing sustainabilities? Would you be able to deal with everybody without understanding what they are saying, without any verbal communication ability to tell them what you want precisely and get what you really want here in China? So that's all I want to say in this quick brief. And I hope everybody enjoy their life here, regardless of foreigner or Chinese. We all suffer from this epidemic, and we all have to hold on to it and try to fight them together to free our life and back to normal. Some people said we might not be able to get back to normal as the past, but certainly the change will improve the society and make better life and better living. If I could put my efforts when I go abroad, you could. So we stand together. 加油!